That can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The moment has arrived. The end of the journey, Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul in general, has come to an end. With chapter 179, we see the wrap-up and the conclusion to Kaneki's journey, Toka's journey, Hide, the ghouls, the CCG, the humans, the V organization, our troll master himself, Furuta. This entire journey going through Tokyo Ghoul and into Tokyo Ghoul has ended. Ishida has put the stamp to the final chapter of this series, and that is a very bittersweet thing to just slowly begin to realize, because since I have procrastinated in making this review, we've already gone at least over a week since chapter 179 has dropped, and we all woke up on a Monday morning and we did not have a brand new Tokyo Ghoul chapter to read, and that felt very, very strange, almost unnatural. So in a way, it's actually kind of a good thing that I actually procrastinated just a little bit in sitting down and talking about the last chapter, because this is going to be my last review that I will be doing on a week-to-week basis for Tokyo Ghoul. So me prolonging it kind of prolongs the end of me talking about it on my channel for just a little bit. On a week-to-week basis, I will have future content on Tokyo Ghoul in the future. It just won't come on a week-to-week basis. But I just want to pay my respects to this wonderful series, because I have been reading this series for over 3 years since I discovered it. And this was the first manga that I've ever dived into and read, and this is the series that actually jump-started me in starting a YouTube channel and getting to talk about it with all of you guys. So if I did not read Tokyo Ghoul, I might have started a YouTube channel and gotten to talk with all of you guys. So I definitely have Ishida to thank for all of that. And I know for many of us, it's a very bittersweet feeling to realize that this series that we love so much and have been reading for a very long time is coming to an end. But I cannot think of a better way to pay our respects than to just dive in and talk about and discuss the very last chapter that Ishida bestowed upon us with chapter 179 of Tokyo Ghoul, entitled The Goat's Song. And this was a behemoth of a final chapter that we ended up getting. 36 pages in total, double the length of pages that we usually get in a regular Tokyo Ghoul chapter. And if you guys saw my live reaction, it took me 15 minutes to read through the entire chapter, because there was just so much content and wrap-up and conclusion crammed into this chapter. I think it's safe to say that Ishida used the 36 pages to the best that he could, because he tried to give all of the major and minor characters the best conclusion that he could give in order to end off this series. Some characters got happy endings, some characters got ambiguous endings, and some other characters really didn't get conclusions or endings at all. And this is what kind of leads into the mixed reception that the fandom kind of has, and that's to be expected, because some people were satisfied and happy with this conclusion that Kaneki and some other characters got their happy ending, but then on the other side of the spectrum, some people were disappointed and sad that the characters that they loved, even if they were minor characters, did not get the ending that they expected them to actually get. And that just tends to happen whenever a series comes to an end. You just never know who is going to be satisfied and who is going to be disappointed. But I can honestly say for myself, I was satisfied with the ending that I got for this series. There's going to be a lot to talk about content-wise, especially with all the character conclusions that we got in this chapter. But what better way to start off this review than to go back to the very first page, and then we'll work our way towards the happy ending that Kaneki got with his new family, with Kaneki, Toka, and their daughter, and they presumably have another child on the way. So we will get to talking about that in just a little bit. But let's start back at the beginning with the first page, where we see just a butterfly flying on a blank white page. And I really do like the fact that Ishida used this butterfly as a transition tool between these final chapters, because with 178, we see Toka looking out the window and seeing the butterfly flying through the air, and then we see this butterfly just fly in onto the very first page of chapter 179. But the thing about this butterfly is that it has the ability to time travel. We have a massive time jump within this last chapter. We jump forward 6 years into the future, and we get to see how much the city of Tokyo and its citizens have changed over this 6-year time skip. Some of it has been for the better, some of it not so much. It comes with its positives and negative, but society is actually really moving forward because we get to see the coexistence of humans and ghouls. Society is starting to rebuild after Dragon popped up in the middle of Tokyo, and they are also making strides moving forward in the medical fields by using RC cells. Things are actually looking really good for society 6 years in the future, but the one thing I really do like that Ishida ended up doing for this chapter is that we end up following the viewpoint of Hide. Hide ends up running into all the characters that we end up getting conclusions for, and I think that's just a really nice touch that for the last chapter, we have it being narrated from the viewpoint of Hide. But even though the city of Tokyo has changed over this 6-year time skip, some aspects have still remained the same because we still have oviducts present within the city landscape of Tokyo. They have not gone away ever since Dragon has been dealt with, and these things are still producing Kagane monsters, and they continue to attack the inhabitants of Tokyo, and they have been coined the Dragon Orphans, and they have now become the common enemy of the humans and the ghouls. But now because these Dragon Orphans are the common enemy, they have helped solidify the coexistence between the humans and the ghouls, and that is just great to see that Kaneki's dream over the course of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul of one day seeing that coexistence come to fruition, it happened in the last chapter for Tokyo Ghoul. We saw inklings of it actually starting to form during the final arc when the humans and ghouls were fighting back against the V organization, against Furata, and also the Kagane monsters. But it's nice to know that over this 6-year time skip, they've actually strengthened their bond, and now the coexistence just feels so natural within this final chapter. And to help usher in this new era within Tokyo Ghoul, we come to learn about 2 new organizations rising up to pick up the mantle that the CCG is leaving behind. On the human side, we have the TSC, Tokyo Security Committee, and then on the ghoul side, we have United Front, and both of these organizations are led by Marude and then Tsukiyama and Banjo respectively. But going into the last chapter, I kind of expected the CCG to just be disbanded and thrown to the wayside because that is a relic of the Washu clan, and by getting rid of the CCG, you're getting rid of the Washu clan altogether, and that just makes a lot of sense going into the final chapter. But I love having these 2 new organizations to represent the humans and the ghouls because they can come together and give both sides equal representation and usher in this new era of coexistence between humans and ghouls. This is Kaneki's dream right here. He has dreamed throughout the course of this series to one day have the coexistence between humans and ghouls, and that has come to fruition within the final chapter, and I just love getting to see that. But because we have coexistence now between humans and ghouls, they are making strides moving forward in the medical field using RC cells to help not only humans, but ghouls as well. And this is crazy to think about because we have a lot of stuff dealing on the medical side of things that they are now ushering in within this new society. And this has been the dream and goal of Kano throughout this entire series. He has been trying to tell people that they need to use RC cells and ghoul biology in medical research, and he's not around to see it. He died too soon. He could have lived to see this, but it's just crazy to think about that the regeneration operation, the cure of ROS, and the synthetic food that we see being displayed within this chapter was kind of all thanks to Kano. So that all right there is the content that we got on the backstory during the time skip to build up the world of Tokyo Ghoul, to see what has changed over the past 6 years. But everything else that we got in this chapter, a bulk of the content deals with Ishida giving us a lot of conclusion and wrap up to a majority of the character story arcs within this series. And we had a lot of boxes going into detail about each individual character, how they ended up spending their lives during the time skip, and how they ended up spending the rest of their lives after the ending of this series. And this kind of leads into some people either being satisfied or disappointed. I'm going to talk about a majority of these characters. I don't think I'm going to talk about all of them, but if you guys just want to go read the chapter, I think you can understand what Ishida was trying to tell us with each individual character and how their stories have come to an end. But with all that being said, let's dive into all of these characters' conclusions. So first up, we have Marude and Mabuchi. And with Marude, he actually became the TSC director, leading this new organization over the 6-year time skip until his recent retirement. But I think it's safe to say, after the time skip, the years have not been kind to him. He looks tired, he looks withered, he needs a break. He honestly deserves a break. After all the stuff that he did throughout this series, he needs this retirement. But it's also really nice to see that his right-hand man, Mabuchi, was right by his side until his retirement. Even though Mabuchi's eyes have gotten worse, he was there with Marude as the TSC Chief Information Officer. Next up, we have Tsukiyama and Banjo, who are the new representatives and leaders of the Ghoul organization United Front. And I love seeing Shu within this role, but not only that, he is now the new head of the Tsukiyama family, and he's starting to bring back the Tsukiyama group, the organization that we saw kind of get disbanded and destroyed during the Tsukiyama raid arc. And plus, he's got this new hairstyle, and I just look at this and I am just amazed at seeing the growth of Shu's character, to see where he has come to where he is now an ambassador for Ghoul kind. That is great growth on his character. But then I also like seeing Banjo within this role as well, because not only is he leading the United Front, he is still leading the Ghoul Mask organization that he's always led, but he also ended up marrying Jiro, one of the 3 gas mask lieutenants that have always been around him, and Shu planned the wedding. That right there is just beautiful. So after Shu and Banjo, we end up moving over to Matsuri Washu, or as he's being called within this chapter, Matsuri Suzuki. And we have some interesting stuff learned about with Matsuri, because he ends up renouncing all of his titles and also his last name of Washu, and he also ends up separating and divorcing from his wife, and now he just works as a regular employee at the TSC. A lot of this makes a lot of sense that he's separating himself from the Washu clan, but because he's just renounced all of his titles, the Washu clan bloodline ends here with Matsuri Suzuki. So that right there is an interesting thing to learn about within this last chapter. Though I gotta say, him divorcing his wife isn't all that surprising, because we know he's into dudes. We have that famous strip thing that happened chapters ago when he was just fawning over Urei. So Matsuri, you kind of view it as either a happy ending or kind of like a somber ending for his character. And then we end up moving on to Miss Kyoko, the beautiful Miss Kyoko, who ended up leading into the education of the younger generation at the academies. But the sad thing is, she remained single all her life. I'm kind of wishing that she ended up finding someone for herself, but it is what it is with the beautiful Miss Kyoko. And then a very simple man, Mugen, just becomes a monk. He took the cloth, he ends up shaving his head, he's now bald. It's actually a good look for Mugen, I gotta say. But then we see with Kuriui, he becomes the Vice Chancellor of the TSC Academy, kind of leading the same role that Miss Kyoko is doing, leading the younger generation. But this next one really did shock me. We have Gomase Tokage getting an end card sequence within this final chapter, and all I can say is karma is a bitch, because this is the man that tortured Jason, and in some strange way and line of thinking, by torturing Jason, he also kind of tortured Kaneki in that light. But this man was heinous, he was sadistic, he tortured ghouls and animals and manipulated his students. But this is the end that I think just fits for his character, to where one of his students just ended up stabbing him to death. And I just gotta say, that is the end Tokage deserves. So moving away from that, we move on to learn about what happens with Harako after chapter 178. And he just ends up retiring, wanting a normal, simple life. He ends up taking care of his grandparents, ends up working at a funeral home. But I really do like this shot. It's very tranquil, just seeing Harako sitting there on the porch with his dog. That's the type of life I expect for Harako to have after his retirement. But then we move on to Kuramoto Ito, to where he got moved to the Kansai branch of the TSC with his subordinates. I know the translation says CCG, but I think that's just an error because the CCG has been disbanded. So I'm guessing it is talking about the TSC. And then we also come to learn that Fura, Arima's first sidekick, the sidekick he had during the Jack comics, he also gets promoted to Associate Special Class at the age of 41, the same guy that shared that smokes with Shirazu, but thanks to his wife and daughter, he actually ends up quitting smoking, so good on you, Fura. But as we move forward within this chapter, we come to see the QS Squad doing a whack-a-mole operation down in the sewers in the underground, taking out a lot of the dragon orphans, but this ends us transitioning us into seeing what ends up happening with Shirazu's sister, Haru, because she is cured of her ROS and she is with Ure paying their respects at Shirazu's grave. But it's just really nice to know that Ure, Saiko, and Mitsuki kept their promise to Shirazu to pay for his sister's medical bills as she was recovering from ROS. Plus, she's also living at the chateau with the QS Squad, which basically is now her family. That is just really nice. I love the fact that we had that resolution with Shirazu's sister, because if we did not get resolution to that, that would have been a huge plot hole that would have just been forgotten for the conclusion of the series. But we also had a kind of a happy and sad moment as well as we learn with what actually happens with Shirazu, because after 3 years during the 6-year time skip, Ure ends up stumbling across Shirazu's remains, some bones that actually had remnants of the QS operation, and he ended up bringing back those remains and putting them in the shrine of CCG heroes. He definitely deserves to be in that spot because Shirazu was one of my favorite characters of this series. It was tough to see him go. I was kind of happy and not happy to know that he was not resurrected, but this was a good end, I think, for his character. But speaking of another plot point that gets resolved within this chapter, we see Shinohara wake up from his vegetative state. And I love getting to see Juzo being led in by his subordinates, by Habara, and he just gets to see his father figure rising up from the bed, alive and well. I love the dynamic and relationship between Shinohara and Juzo. They were my favorite sections from part 1, especially that moment near the end where Juzo finally realized that he had emotions for Shinohara. And all of those emotions come welling back up to the surface during this moment. He falls down to his knees. And Juzo is a man that doesn't allow his emotions to show too often. He usually keeps his guard up, but this is when the walls come down and he just lets it all out. And I love what Ishida did for this one panel because it makes it look like Juzo has white hair again, going back to part 1. That is just a beautiful artistic touch that Ishida implemented during this section of the chapter. But all I can say about Shinohara is that he's going to have a lot to catch up on because Dragon, the CCG is gone, Juzo now has black hair. He's got to catch up on a whole bunch of stuff, but I believe Juzo will be spending a lot of time with his father figure. And as we move forward, we come to learn more about the Suzuya Squad. Shinohara, even though he is retired, will be helping out the TSC from the shadows. But the next big thing that we get in this chapter is that Naki and Misa are married and they have 9 children together. We have Shiroi, Nagi, Nage, Mirei, Marin, Zei, Zonki, Yanagi, and Ware. That is a lot of kids. They got busy during the 6-year time skip. We also come to see that Nishiki and Kimi are still together after the 6-year time skip, and they're not married yet, but hopefully will be very soon. I'm actually surprised that Nishiki and Kimi are not married yet. Nishiki, what is taking you so long? But I can kind of see why. Kimi is most likely very, very busy. Both of them are in fact very busy as Kimi is helping to develop synthetic food for the ghouls to eat. I think that takes precedent at the moment, so that way when they do get married, she has something that she can at least feed to her ghoul husband. So I like getting to see them have a little wrap up within this chapter. But the one thing I was not expecting was a wrap up for Madam A. She disappeared after the auction raid arc, and we haven't seen her since. Apparently, she became a farmer and now has a pet cow. All right, Ishida. But now we reach the section of the chapter to where we start to get the bad endings and the ambiguous endings for some of our characters. The first bad ending that we kind of get for a character in this last chapter is with Shikare. Shikare ends up becoming the most powerful opponent of the TSC moving forward. He becomes a full Kakaja after devouring the dragon orphans, and he has now reached one-eyed ghoul Eto status in the eyes of the TSC. And I think I should probably bring this up as well since I just mentioned Eto. Eto is nowhere to be seen or heard throughout this chapter. I don't know why that is. Maybe she actually did end up dying at the end of chapter 178, because back in that chapter, we just saw her lying on the ground with a smile on her face. I am hoping that when volume 16 comes out, with those extra pages it's going to have, maybe it will shine some light for the Eto fans, because the Eto fans, I think, were really disappointed with this chapter. And the disappointment kind of continues with Takizawa, Kuro, Almon, and Akira. I feel really bad for the people that really do like these characters, because they don't actually get proper endings, at least in what I am actually seeing from this chapter. Because with Sato, he is aloof and in the shadows moving forward in the story, and he only hunts down renegade ghouls from time to time, and that's not really a proper ending I think the Takizawa fans were hoping for Sato. And the same thing could be said for Kuro, because she just ends up going to the Middle East and goes MIA. But I feel so bad for the Almon and Akira fans, because all we get of them is a silhouette. No description of what their life has been like afterwards, whether they ended up starting a family, having kids, did they get married. We just got nothing other than the fact that they just do not hold a grudge to everyone, and that's it. I feel bad for the Almon and Akira fans, but I think it's safe to assume that they just ended up living a simple and normal life, and hopefully ended up starting a family together. So I can definitely see why some of the fans were left disappointed with these particular characters and their conclusions. But we move away from them and we end up getting our conclusions with the QS Squad. We come to learn that Urei has been promoted to Associate Special Class. He has gotten that promotion, but he is leading the future generation of the QS Squad. Psycho has kind of become a mascot at the chateau, which I find to be very, very cute. And then we come to see that Mitsuki ends up leaving the TSC, going into a rural branch and working with Hoagie and Aura and getting promoted to Special Class Investigator. But my favorite by far from the QS Squad is getting to see how much Yusa Arima has grown. He was my favorite by far from the Zero Squad members, and he basically looks like Heise now that he is older, with the white hair due to the rapid aging, kind of like Arima in a way. But I like the fact that he was kind of being pushed to pick up the name of Kishio Arima, but refused it. But I loved getting to see him within this final chapter. He looked really badass, and I can say the same thing about Urei, because he basically looked like Black Reaper Kaneki. But to round out the QS Squad, we actually come to see that Higemaru was responsible for building the relationship between the TSC, the police, and the fire department. Aura just went to go work in the countryside with Mitsuki. Not really too much with him right there, but honestly, I don't think anybody really cares. But it's Xiao I think everyone really cares about, because for obvious reasons. But she ended up having to retire due to her rapid aging, but she ended up, helping them out with the research with the shortened lifespan. And since they ended up curing it in some way, she ends up coming back to work as an administrative intel related capacity. So it's nice to know we had some pretty good ends with our QS Squad members. Though I do kind of wish that we did get a final conversation taking place between Kaneki and Mitsuki. Ayato and Hanami. These two have to be dating at this point, right guys? They have to be. They have to be in a relationship, because we already know that eventually they are going to get together. And Ishida during this section is dropping those hints hard. We see them always glued at the hip. Hanami is always bringing Ayato to the mall with her, and Hanami is dropping not so subtle hints by telling Ayato, little kids really are cute. Huh, Ayato? Huh? Hinami, you're not being subtle, but I love what you're doing there right now. And I gotta admit, they do make a really cute couple, and I do hope that they do end up together. But I like seeing Ayato here, because it goes to reinforce to us that Ayato made it out of the oviduct alive and well, and we eventually learn that with Kaneki too later on during this section. But I like coming to learn what Ayato and Hanami do after the 6-year time skip, because we see that Ayato has a leadership role within the United Front, and Hanami is actually teaching ghoul orphans at the orphanage reading and writing. That fits their characters really, really well. And then we also move on to see Takeyomi and Yoriko starting a family of their own, and Takeyomi has become best friends with Urei. How things have changed between those two characters. So I like getting to see the family dynamic starting up with Takeyomi and Yoriko, But now we dive into the most shocking revelation that I had while reading this chapter. We see Kuriowa Sr. alive and well. He died, right? I could have sworn that Kuriowa Sr. died when Furuta stabbed him in the neck with a sword. I had to do a double take during my live reaction because I honestly was not expecting to see Kuriowa Sr. alive and well. It's kind of pointless, in all honesty, because I felt like it would have been a better end for his character if he did die back during that moment. But at this point, I just think Ishida kept him alive for shits and or giggles. But seeing him alive just for me kind of confirms a cruel joke that I kind of have with the series at this point, because as we've approached the ending of this series, less and less characters kind of died in a way. I mean, we had the main villains die, but when it comes to major characters, as soon as we thought they were about to die, Ishida just kind of resurrected them and they came back into the story. So we had that with Koma, Urimi, Kuriowa, Eto. So I don't know why these characters just had like these scares of death and just came back alive, but Kuriowa alive and well, and that just seems to be the case. So moving away from that, this one is kind of underrated, but I really do like this conclusion with Misato's character because she is just a minor character, but she's big enough of a minor character to have her own chapter in a light novel. And I just love the fact that all of these young male investigators at the TSC are fawning over her, and she's now popular amongst the male investigators. And even though she's denied all of them, I like this change of pace for her character. This is a really nice conclusion for Misato's character. But now we have approached the final sections of this chapter to where we finally get the reveal of Kaneki and Toka's child. And it's a daughter. They had a girl, and I absolutely love this panel shot of getting to see Grand Uncle Yomo with pigtails, ribbons in his hair, playing with his grand niece. He has waited for this moment for very long, and I just love the fact that he just gets to play with his grand niece. This is a really good, happy conclusion for Yomo as a character, and as of right now, we still don't know the name of Kaneki and Toka's daughter. I know there was a rumor going around the internet that she was named Maya or Maya after Kaneki's mother, but we never in fact learned the name of Kaneki's mother within the series. She's just referred to as Kaneki's mother, so that rumor that the daughter's name is Maya is in fact false. But Kaneki and Toka's daughter is very cute and very adorable, and I love her salt and pepper hair, just the design of it. It really does remind me of Heise, and I just love getting to see the fact that their first child was in fact a daughter. And then we move away from Yomo playing with the daughter, and we come to see what is going on with the clown organization, or what remains of the clown organization. We come to learn that Uta is still trying to attack Yomo any way that he can, get the thrills of his life. We come to learn that Itari actually had feelings for Uta this entire time, but never will tell him. That right there would have been very interesting to know earlier on in the series. And then we come to find out that Nico just goes off somewhere to find male love somewhere, we don't know, but that is what we have with our conclusion of the clown organization. And all we have left right now is Toka, Kaneki, and Hide. For Toka, we don't actually get a written description of what has been going on with her ever since the time skip, but I think it's very safe to assume that she has just been living a very happy, normal life, being married to Kaneki, having their child, and maybe having another child on the way, because it does look like within this chapter, Toka is pregnant yet again. So this is definitely going to leave room for speculation on what the next child is going to be. What do you guys think? Is it going to be a boy or a girl? Let me know down in the comments below what you would like the second child between Kaneki and Toka to be. But then we just get the big old family reunion by seeing Tsukiyama, Banjo, Hanami, Ayato, Hide, everyone coming in to come visit them. We come to learn that their daughter actually loves apples, which brings us back to Eto, who was another half human, half ghoul who could actually eat human food as well. So we can actually assume that Kaneki and Toka's daughter can also eat human food as well. And then we get the reveal that Kaneki is still alive. I love this double spread page because this is the happiest we have ever seen Kaneki throughout this series. I love the fact that he is getting a happy ending. Ayato saved him from drowning within the oviduct, but you can still tell that his body is still misshapen and has designs all over it. You can see it on his neck, and he has this weird pattern, this dark mark coming under his left eye going around his face. We never really got a proper explanation on whether or not that is going to go away, but I don't think that matters at this point. All that matters right now is that Kaneki is happy and he's going to move forward with his life, being married to Toka and starting a family. And what better end could you have for Kaneki's character? But then we get our final interaction between the two best bros of TG, Kaneki and Hide. And I loved having this final interaction near the ending of this chapter, just getting to see them having fun, messing around with one another, where Hide is teasing Kaneki by saying, "You still hate being unable to do anything, right?" And we just see Kaneki smile, he laughs, and he touches his chin, and he begins to say, "I don't say that too much. I only said that 2 to 3 times, maybe 4 times tops." And then we end off this section by saying that Kaneki and Hide remained friends for the rest of their lives. But then we get a small info dump on Hide's character. And of course, Ishida drops this on the very last chapter. I wish we got this information earlier on, but you know Ishida, he wanted to hold this until the very end. And this is some crucial information. This is the most that we learn about Hide's character throughout the entire series, because as we come to learn, Hide's father was in fact a CCG investigator, and he died in the line of duty when Hide was in elementary school, and he ended up, going into the adoptive system, foster care, and ended up getting adopted into a new family, and then eventually met Kaneki not long after that. But based on the translation that you read, the adoptive side can be one of 2 things. He either got adopted by a single father, or he got adopted by 2 fathers. He could have got adopted by a gay couple. So I am very curious on what the actual translation of this is, because that would be really cool if Hide was actually adopted into a gay family and actually had 2 dads. But I really won't know until this gets a release in the US and I see the official translation. So if any of you guys actually know whether it was just 1 father or 2 fathers mentioned within this section, leave that down in the comments below. But that is what we learn about Hide's character. And then we just go right into the final section of this chapter with seeing Kaneki, Toka, and their daughter just walking. And then we just see this double spread page of a beautiful blue sky, clouds everywhere, a nice meadow. And Kaneki is like, what a beautiful day. He got his happy ending. This was great to see by the ending of this chapter. Kaneki standing there with his wife and child. And we just ended off with the final page of the teacup, where Ishida is just thanking us for going on this 7-year journey with him. And he provides us with a color portrait of Kaneki and Toka, bringing us all the way back to the beginning of Tokyo Ghoul. We have now come full circle. We have reached the ending of Tokyo Ghoul Re with this chapter, and thus the ending of the series of Tokyo Ghoul as a whole. This journey has been an amazing one to go on. Sure, you can nitpick about this ending, be disappointed on some aspects, but I am just glad that we got a happy ending, and this ending was very satisfying for me. It's crazy to think that my 3 to 4 year journey with this series has now come to an end, and I just want to thank you guys for spending that time with me for the 70 or so chapters that I have been doing live reactions and reviews on this channel. It has been a blast getting to talk with you guys about Tokyo Ghoul, but as the saying goes, all good things must eventually come to an end, and for Tokyo Ghoul, it has come to an end. So with that, guys, that is my final review that I will be doing on a week-to-week basis for the manga of Tokyo Ghoul Re. I bet this review is quite long, but considering it's the final chapter, I think it was very much needed. But if Ishida, moving forward, plans to do a sequel in the future, or if he moves on to do something new, I will definitely be covering whatever Ishida does on my channel. You have my word on that. I am very, very excited to see what Ishida does next. But now I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on this final chapter, and as the series as a whole. What does Tokyo Ghoul mean to you guys? How has the journey been for you? Were you satisfied or disappointed with the conclusion? Let me know down in the comments below, guys. But if you guys want to continue to talk about Tokyo Ghoul, outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter, guys. I will try to keep up with talking about Tokyo Ghoul on Twitter. I will do it here and there, but I think for right now, my main focus is going to be focused towards My Hero Academia, and I'm actually very, very excited to be putting all my attention towards My Hero because I absolutely love that series. With all that being said, guys, there will be no new Tokyo Ghoul video coming out next week. There will be some in the future, but until my next video, guys, I will talk to you guys next time.